Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Forest Hill School District Board of Education meeting on Wednesday, November 15th. May I have a call to order?
Mr. Bibb?
Here.
Mrs. Jonas?
Here.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Here.
Mrs. Stewart?
Here.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Here. 1.4, Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody rise, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
1.5, we have the safety briefing, the doors that you came in, and we have 2 doors down here for exits. 2.1, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Yes.
Item 3.0, we have the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve items 3.1 to 3.6 as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Yes. Item 4.0, we have special recognitions.
Good evening. I am happy tonight to present to you our PBIS awards for this year. I'd like to have Steve Traylor, who's hiding. So come on. Oh, you're right here. There you are. Okay. So I do want to say to Steve, a thank you. With some of the adjustments we've made in staffing and in the absence of a director of student services this year, he has really stepped in to help just continue to facilitate the great work that's happening in our buildings already. So with that, I want to go ahead and have Steve, I want him to do this tonight.
Thank you. It's been a minute. Hello. The building representatives, please come on down for the PBIS awards. And while they're coming down, I want to take a minute to thank our board for their support, in particular Leslie and Linda, as you are going to be exiting shortly. It's not an easy job, and I just appreciate that you're giving your time and your effort. So thank you.
Steve. Thank you, Steve.
Come on in front of the camera.
Come into the light.
Come into the light.
Yeah. You do those.
Good, how are you?
So although this looks like a lot of people, this is actually a small number compared to those that are involved in this process. And that it's truly a lot of impressive work that goes on to create a warm, positive environment for our kids. PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Intervention Supports, and it's a proactive approach. It's what we do to teach our kids the expectations, acknowledge them when they meet the expectations, and reteach when they don't. I want to be really clear that PBIS is how we try to prevent misbehavior. It allows us to achieve the academic results that we get in our district. Each of the buildings have to complete a self-assessment that take quite a bit of time. They have to collect evidence and provide evidence of ongoing efforts throughout the school year. And then the state support team comes in and assesses each building by walking through. They want to see if the students know the expectations, if the teachers know the expectations, if there's evidence that we're walking the walk, so to speak. And then we also use those self-assessments to create our long and short-term goals. So we have a 1 to 2 year action plan, and we have a 3 to 5 year action plan of how we're going to continue to make progress. So I want to congratulate Anderson High School and Sherwood Elementary School for receiving the Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports Bronze recognition. And I want to congratulate Mercer Elementary and Nagel Middle School for receiving the Positive Behavior Intervention Supports Silver recognition. And I want to congratulate Air Elementary, Maddox Elementary, Summit Elementary, Wilson Elementary, and Turpin High School for receiving Positive Behavior Intervention Supports Gold Recognition Awards. So it is recommended that the board commend Anderson, Air, Maddox, Mercer, Nagel, Sherwood, Summit, Turpin, and Wilson schools and their PBIS teams for their achievement and distinction, and a certificate of commendation be presented to them.
I'll make a motion to commend the following schools for their achievement and distinction in receiving the 2022-2023 PBIS State of Ohio District recognition. Congratulations.
Second.
Mr. Bibb, did you second?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Yes.
So item 4.2 is the district recognition. There are over 600 school districts in the state of Ohio, and Forest Hills is one of only 17 districts in the state and only 2 in the southwest region of Ohio to receive the district recognition, because all 9 of our buildings are recognition winners themselves. So it is recommended the board commends all 9 buildings for their district level PBS achievement in district and state, district at the state level.
Thank you.
And this is a small group of people. These are our fierce leaders of our PBIS teams, but there's a number of people who behind the scenes make this happen. And it's moments like this where I reflect about where we've been, where we are, where we're going. And we have so many great things that are happening. When I think about just recently too, we had our Spark Night where we had almost 60 high school students come and share experiments and activities to spark the imagination of our youngest students. And we had probably 1,000 of our elementary students come in throughout the night, and it was packed, it was hot, but it was awesome. Doug Baker, the building looked beautiful. But it was a great opportunity, and the hope is then to spark that excitement for our students so that they will then participate in the Science and Innovation Fair later in January 27th. And we also have, similarly, this month we will be starting our spelling bees at the grade levels, and they're the grade level teams, but then they're also going to have a building-wide and then eventually move on. And so, again, that's another opportunity to showcase the different things that our kids do. And I do want to say to you, Ms. Jonas, thank you so much for your partnership this year with the teaching and learning team and encouraging us to really bring back the spelling bee. I know it's been an ask, and so with that, we have followed your lead, and we appreciate that. And I do appreciate the foundation and the work as far as the grants that they've been able to go and give us. That's one of the grants that they've been able to honor so that we can continue. So I'm grateful for that leadership. Do you have any questions for us? Nope. Just lots to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pam.
Congratulations.
Item 5.0, we have the reports to the Board of Education. First up, we have Forest Hills Teachers Association report.
Yeah, usually we had something. We did have an item on the agenda to commend the district for the PBIS district recognition.
Oh, we need to make a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that.
Second. Jinx.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Yes.
Thank you.
We're good? All right. Moving on, now we'll have the reports. Forest Hills Teacher Association.
Thanks for your time this evening, as always. I have two brief updates. First, the Forest Hills Teachers Association would like to recognize the great work that is being done by organizations in our Anderson and Newtown communities that benefit our students. Nine United recently kicked off their season of giving through programming in our buildings. The work Nine United engages in also goes beyond the holiday season. They provide sustained resources for Forest Hills students and families throughout the year with local community partnerships. We acknowledge our teaching staff, support staff, and administrators who are involved in helping to support this work both now and throughout the year. I'd also like to mention that the Forest Hills Foundation for Education held its fall soiree recently, where resources raised from the event go into our schools and classrooms. We thank the foundation for continuing to enrich the experience for our students. Second, we'd like to join the Forest Hills School District in congratulating our newly elected Board of Education members who will begin their terms in January. We look forward to welcoming them. And we extend our sincere gratitude to our two outgoing board members, Linda and Leslie, for their commitment and dedication to our community during both of their terms in office. And with that, I wish each of you a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, we have the Forest Hills Foundation for Education report.
Good evening. Chris, thank you for attending and supporting the fall soiree this past weekend. That's what I was just briefly going to talk about. We had our event on Saturday. It was a huge event. It was a huge success. We were thrilled to have so many people there. There were 3 specific areas that we raised money for. I would love to give you a total tonight, but we actually still have more money coming in, which is never a problem. Which is always a good thing. So there are 3 areas. One of the areas was regards to STEM and the resources and computers at both high schools for like the engineering classes. That was over $42,000. One of the other areas was for a sustainability project that's going to be piloted at Mercer Elementary starting next year to get compostable trays, lunch trays, at Mercer to pilot, but hopefully throughout the whole district. And then the third one was the additional money to support a child-focused therapist. So during our 15th year anniversary campaign, we did 15, 15, and 15. And we were able to raise over $30,000 to support the child-focused therapist. So the additional 30 was raised at the fall soiree. So it was a huge success. We thank everybody for their support. In addition, I'd love to just personally and on behalf of the foundation thank all of our sponsors. I love to say that it takes a community to bring people together to support programs and resources for the kids. And so thank you to Ivy, Ortho, Zika, Gardner Business Media, Anderson Township UPS store, Whitney, who's the owner there. She won a big prize at the fall soiree. She got a Florida condo, so I'm throwing that out. Let her know. She's great. And then Gardner Business, and then Map Your Show. And then there's several other sponsors, but just thank you to all of them. Also, thank you, Kim, for stating around the spelling bee. We're so excited to support that. In addition to Spark Night and the Innovation Science Fair, the foundation continues to support both of those. And I'd love to give a plug for Parent Academy, which is next Wednesday. And the foundation actually supports that as well. So it's because of our donors and those that support the foundation that we're able to support all these initiatives. So thank you and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Next up, we have the superintendent update.
Thank you, Linda. Members of the board. Just a few items. First of all, our parents and community, just, I listen all the time, and it just continues to amaze me. And just a huge shout out to our teachers and our counselors, administrators, everybody involved with our schools. I know we just finished some walkathons throughout the district at 6 elementaries, and you know, they've raised over $300,000. They go through. That's amazing to me, and it's just a huge shout out, and it just shows you how much our people support our schools and what a wonderful place it is. So, thank you to everybody for their time, and their resources. You know, this all benefits our kids, and that's what it's about. Like to shout out also to our incredible marching band. They did get a superior rating at the OMEA state competition. That's as good as it gets, and so fantastic job. Athletics are kind of winding down. Everybody's kind of done with that. I would give a big shout out to the Turpin Spartans. Right now, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a point system for all of the athletics within the conference for each sport. And at the end of the year, they award an all-sports trophy. So after the fall season, Turpin is leading the Eastern Cincinnati Conference. And so we're excited about that. Also, Friday, we still have some more competition, and we hope it continues with our Anderson Raptors football team. Take on the Withrow Tigers, Princeton High School, 7 o'clock. Have no idea what the weather's going to be, but it's that time of year, so but this is the regional finals. So a win here, you punch your ticket to the state. So best of luck to those guys and gals. And I also want to mention Michelle Hicks just was awarded the Channel 12 Educator of the Week. She's one of our veteran kindergarten teachers at Wilson. Sadly, she's retiring, but I'm also happy for her too. That's kind of one of those, good for you, not so much for us. We're excited for her, but we're gonna invite her back to sub as much as she wants to. And but I had a chance to write her a special letter, so she's something else. She's outstanding. Also, add my congratulations to our board members elect, Wendy Strickler Biederman and Jason Simmons. They will be joining the crew up here. Organizational meeting, which I expected to be approved tonight, will be January 4th, this location. So that's more of that will be in the agenda a little bit later. My final thing I want to mention, I just got back yesterday from the Ohio School Boards Association annual conference, called the Capitol Conference. It's designed for school board members, administrators, and it's really a huge professional development program. Hundreds of concurrent sessions, learning sessions, just where people from all over the state kind of descend there into Columbus. And it was a fantastic time. I always learn something there. It's just, you just always do. So I'm glad to be back. It was cut short, unfortunately. And this is kind of the downer but I do want people to be aware that I'm sure you've seen on the news about a horrific accident. I was on my way to the conference and I caught it on the news where 6 people were killed, 18 others were injured. yesterday early morning after a charter bus that was carrying 54 students and chaperones from the Tusky Valley High School was rear-ended by a semi-trailer just outside of Columbus on I-70. They were actually en route to the Ohio School Board's conference to perform. They lost 3 students, a teacher, 2 parents. Obviously, the conference was canceled then by noon once they started figuring out what was going on. But I just would ask that you'd join me in a moment of, of thought and reflection and prayer, whatever. And remember these families in this school. There's nothing worse that a school would have to endure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Next up, we have public commentary. We have 2 speakers this evening, Mr. Jeff Nye and Kevin Mishiak.
Hi, Jeff Nye, 1000 Eversole. With my couple minutes today, I want to praise someone who I think has done a great job on something for the kids of the last year or so, 6 months, I guess, that I've known her, and that's Melanie Hartong, who is the Community Partnership Specialist, I think is the term. I met Melanie in maybe April or May at a board meeting here. She sat right behind me. We got to chatting. And over the past few months, Melanie has spent countless hours working on arranging a visit for about 20 high school students to the First District Court of Appeals. I came in and met with the students, I think 4 times, 2 times at each school, talked to the kids about the cases, talked to them about the court system, what they'd see, how it works. We went down on Monday. They sat through arguments in 3 cases. They met with the judges. They had a little tour of the Court of Appeals. And they had half an hour, 45 minutes of Q&A with 3 of the judges who heard the cases. They had great questions. They were, interested and attentive. At least one of them has already followed up about trying to get an internship with the court. And Melanie just put in dozens and dozens of hours on this. I couldn't tell you how many emails I've seen from her that I'm copied on with the court trying to arrange this. So I just want to take a minute and praise Melanie. She does lots of other things with lots of other people out in the community. It's a great program. She's a great asset to the district. I just want to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mishiak, please.
Kevin Mishiak, 8433 Holiday Hills Drive. Picked a great night for this topic, which is planning. I see by the itinerary we'll be going over the 5-year forecast, one of my favorite documents to review each year. I'm very familiar with it. I'm going to quote Ben Franklin, paraphrase him, "Failure to plan is a plan for failure." Anderson Township, I attend those meetings. Those are tomorrow night for those of you who care to attend, is an award-winning township for planning, comprehensive planning for the community, for the roads, for the buildings, all of our services. I found out from last month's meeting that, unfortunately, Forest Hill School District does not attend those meetings. I found that very disappointing, given the needs that we have in this community for building and construction and parking lots and roofing and just a lot of other services that we could work with the township on. We have a 5-year forecast. There's opportunities there to collaborate with the township if we were to participate in that process. I also note that we have a 3-year contract coming up for the employees. That's presenting other challenges for this community. Anderson High School, 63 years old. Is there a plan to address that issue? I'd like to hear it. It's been on the schedule for 10 years. It was first proposed in 2014 to rebuild the school. Unfortunately, the Park District last month bought the property that was under that plan, so that property is no longer available to the district. Another missed opportunity for us. I also note under the longer-term plan that I tend to look at that according to the 5-year forecast from May, we have a levy that will need to pass in 25 or 26, somewhere in there, 2 or 3 years. All right, that was after this current one, which I haven't gotten a bill for. I look forward to getting that 20% property tax increase, just like the rest of the community does. So I will eagerly look forward to how all these new plans and things like that. And I would ask the district, if you'd be so kind as to find time in your very busy schedule, as to work with the township on some of these comprehensive planning things that they've won awards for. All right? Appreciate your time. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Item 8.0, we have human resources.
Good evening. Happy November. Pretty straightforward report, but I thought I'd start by just on the heels of Mr. Hook's comments about Mrs. Hicks, Michelle Hicks. And I'm going to share a quote from that article. Channel 12 did that bit yesterday. And I think it speaks volumes about her, but I think it really encompasses so many of our incredible folks in the organization. She said that I live really close. She said, they're already telling me I need to come back and help substitute. She said, I need to come back for that, so I know it doesn't have to be forever. She's talking about retirement. She says, I just want to be that teacher who loved her kids, who did everything for her kids, and I believe I've done that. I hope I've done that. I think it just adds like some meaning to what it is that we do day in and day out, working with kids to the best of our abilities. And I want to thank Michelle, who obviously has already been board approved for her retirement. We have 2 on there for approval this evening, Susan Groney and Joseph Turner. Susan and Joe they've been collectively in the district for over 50 years, and they are they also had their kids come through the school district, and obviously we'll miss them, wish them all the best as they finish up the final year here in Forest Hills. The rest of the report's pretty straightforward. A few resignations for the board this evening. In item D, I'd like to highlight just the change of assignment and titles. Predominantly, these are in line with the maintenance restructure of the titles and the positions that we've had following our negotiations from the summer, and would like to thank Doug Baker and the team there for their input there, and look forward to working with them in the future. We have a few appointments here. One I'd like to highlight, Matthew Stanley. He is coming in as our Assistant Athletic Director at Turpin. He's coming to us following Kristen Mills' resignation, if you recall, last month. Kristen took a job outside of the athletic field, and we're excited to have Matthew back. Obviously, wish Kristen all the best. Matthew's coming to us from Upper Arlington, where he was a game manager and a full-time building substitute, but he's got his undergraduate degree in sports industry and a master's in sports administration. So he's very excited to get down here, and his first day is the day after Thanksgiving break, so the 27th. Let's see. Number of supplementals coming through and volunteers for approval as usual. And then item L, we've got a number of job descriptions that are just updated. Some following the maintenance conversation, but others just as we're posting, trying to keep those up to date and current. And item N is also following the salary schedule, primarily focusing on the changed titles. So, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, business operations.
Good evening, Madam President, rest of the board. I'd like to start out by first saying that if you just turned your page, you might notice there's a 5th item on the agenda. I'll explain that as we go through, and it's really not a new item, it's a different way we're trying to do something. So I'll explain that as we go, okay? So going through the items in business operations, 9.1 is just a revised resolution of declaring impractical transportation for non-public school students. It's just we had more enrollments in the schools that we aren't transporting to, so we had to update the list and get that approval. Same thing you've done the past couple months in a row. Okay, thank you. Moving to 9.2 is very exciting. This is a resolution to purchase 3 school buses. The overall cost of the buses will be $421,403. That is 3 buses, 1 standard bus, and 2 accessible buses for our handicapped students. And the difference, why the cost seems higher, other purchases we've done, 1, inflation, but 2, accessible bus cost over $34,000 more than a regular bus with all the lifts and stuff we need to have in that. So that will be the resolution to purchase the 3 buses. Now, this is where you'll start noticing a change in the agenda that you guys were looking at over the weekend, okay? First on this one, the request is to advertise for bid for stated projects below. Previously, you saw Anderson Track and Field on there. We are still addressing Anderson Track and Field. That's going to come up in 9.5, okay? This is strictly the lighting rack in Turpin High School. The lighting rack, just so you know, I've learned a little bit with this too, is basically the brains of the operation. It's over 25 years old and the brains are gone. Our crew has been able to rig it up and adjust it so lights come on and off, but we need a new rack, and it's biddable because it's an improvement to the building, and the cost is going to run anywhere from $80,000 to $85,000 based on estimates we've received. The next 9.4, the request to advertise for proposal. What makes this different? We've always requested advertise to bid. Advertise for proposals is, to break it down, basically a bid, we put it out to bid, we must by law take the lowest bid. The proposal, because for a service contract, we are not required by law to bid. The only thing we have to do is board policy, just get 3 quotes. But the proposal is going to kick it up a notch where Mr. Corley and I can have very scripted exactly what we want from a contractor to come in with our lawn care. We don't want to go with the lowest bid. We've been going with the lowest bid, and I think we can improve upon our service and our processes to make our campuses look nice year-round. So that's why we're doing an advertisement for proposal, okay? Then in 9.5, Legal and I finally got everything put together today. That's why the set is. What you'll notice, it's a resolution to authorize replacement of turf and track at Anderson High School. Inside the resolution, it gives us the option to do 2 things. We can put it out to bid, just like we've done other large projects. But we can also look at consortium pricing, where the consortium bids state and nationally to get strong prices. So that's going to give us the option to look at both and go in the best direction that we believe is to procure the field in the best way we can be fiscally responsible on a large item like this. Because the project will range anywhere from $750 possibly to $850 or $900,000, depending on conditions once they get into the base of it. So that was the purpose of the change, to give us more flexibility to get the best value for the district and be more prudent with our dollars in this case. And this resolution is set forth to do that. So with that stated, it is recommended the board approve 9.1 through 9.5 as part of the consent agenda. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I have a couple. Oh, sorry, go Bob.
When was the last time the turf was replaced there?
It's going on to its 11th year.
And there's 300,000 in the fund now. Is that right, Alana?
In the ballpark,
Is
yes.
it? Okay.
Yes.
Say that's about something like that. You know how much was in the turf? Remember how much is in the turf?
John, just curious, what's the lifespan of these things?
You get 8 to 10 years.
So we're good?
Yes. Yeah, we're in good shape. It definitely needs to be replaced. We've been having a turf company out there multiple times this year trying to take care of seams and stuff like that to where it becomes an issue. So they have to keep sewing it together and it falling apart. So it's met its lifespan. It was a good product and it's just at the end of life.
Are we gonna follow our priority maintenance plan? Because it said the turf replacement is paid through the turf fund, so it would, I mean, do we already have money set aside for that? And then,
We have about 200 and close to 200, or I'm sorry, not 200, 360,000 in the Anderson Turf Fund. I don't have the exact amount with me tonight, but any over that would need to come out of the main, out of the main PI fund.
and because on here it says too that the track is coming out of the 001, right? Or is it?
Yeah, or the
03?
000.
Okay.
003.
Okay. Okay.
000. That's the tax fund, the main PI fund.
Okay. And then I had a question I had emailed, but on 9.1, St. Bernadette is not listed in the Excel, but it's listed in the resolution. Does that matter? Do we want to update that before we approve it or anything?
Let me take a look at that.
I will have to defer to Ms. Cropper on the procedural if a clerical error can be adjusted afterwards.
On 9.1.
Yes.
And it's on the Excel sheet.
It's not on the Excel, but
Not
it's listed on the
But
resolution.
it's listed on the resolution. We could adjust the Excel with the board's knowledge. It's just a clerical error at that point.
Okay, so St. Bernadette should not be listed on there?
Well, in essence, it could, I think I know where this is going. We may not have a student there, but the district is still declared impractical. So
Okay,
we wouldn't
okay.
want to take it out of the impracticability of it because then we'd have to go through a whole nother process again.
Okay.
In case a student enrolls.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah,
clarify?
that makes sense.
Okay.
What happened?
Thank you, I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question. Do the boosters at Anderson help pay for any of the field maintenance or any of that kind of stuff? Didn't they used to?
To my knowledge, they've never purchased field, turf or anything
Okay, I
like
thought
that of
they
that
helped
nature.
with some
No, what
stuff
most
or-
booster programs, and I don't want to get in exactly what they do because I'll misquote it, but the most booster programs get the ancillary items for us that make the experience even better for the student athletes. Just like the band boosters do some of the ancillary things to make band. That's really what we look for the boosters too. They are great partners and they do a lot of great stuff for us, but truthfully, boosters buying a field is something
mean the
I'm not,
whole
well, I know, not the whole field, but that's truthfully not something that any booster group I've ever done with has been part of it. Now, if they could buy the whole field, that'd be great, but,
Like that.
that'd be a steep ask. That'd be a lot of walkathons. Any other questions? We good? Hi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have teaching and learning curriculum.
Hey, just another quick one. A request for another overnight field trip. This time it is for our Anderson gymnastics team. They're not part of OHSAA, but they do get to travel. So they're requesting to go up to Columbus in January for some extra competition up there. It's recommended as part of the consent agenda that the board approve this. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Next up, teaching and learning, student services.
Good evening. Student Services, Special Education has two items tonight, 11.1 and 11.2. They are presented as resolutions due to confidentiality of the students. 11.1 is an agreement with Claremont County Educational Service Center for placement of a student at CEC South. This is a program that's designed to have be highly structured for students with behavior and emotional needs. 11.2 is an agreement with Hamilton County Educational Service Center for placement at the Learning Center in Norwood. This is also a placement for a student with specific specialized needs, and I have included the costs of both programs, both of which are prorated based on the start date for these students. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have the treasurer's report.
Good evening. We have a pretty lengthy report tonight, so I'll apologize in advance. The treasurer's report starts with agenda item 12.1, and this is an annual resolution that we bring to you that is requested by the Hamilton County Budget Commission. This resolution permits the district to file a modified tax budget for the upcoming 24-25 fiscal year, which begins July 1st, 2024. The modified tax budget will continue to present information for those funds that receive tax revenues, and it eliminates the requirement to present those funds that do not receive tax revenues. On the modified budget, the district reports our approved 5-year forecast and appropriations for the debt service fund, permanent improvement, and building funds. So the general fund, debt service, permanent improvement, and building funds, all funds that have received taxes. Agenda item 12.2 is a calendar that outlines the requirements and timelines of the Ohio Revised Code to present and file the fiscal 25 tax budget. As you can see by the calendar in your agenda, we will be asking the board to approve the tax budget at our organizational meeting, which a little bit later in the meeting you're setting for January 4th. Prior to that, the tax budget, as required, will be available to the public for viewing at our administrative offices beginning on December 13th. A notice will be placed in the December 10th edition of the Cincinnati Enquirer announcing the availability of that tax budget for viewing. A budget hearing will be held immediately preceding the organizational meeting on January 4th. After the board's approval, the tax budget will be filed in the county auditor's office prior to the January 20th deadline. So that is the annual requirements of the upcoming tax budget. Moving on to 12.3, we have the 5-year forecast. So, and I believe I have a PowerPoint. Jody, if you could get the PowerPoint up, please. I also, while she's working on pulling that up, I did make a hard copy for the board in case they wanted to take it home. And in addition, it is on board docs if you prefer viewing that way. Thank you. So the Ohio Department of Education requires school districts to submit a 5-year forecast of our general operating fund of the school district. The first submission is required to be submitted in November with an update at the end of the school year, which is due at the end of May. On this slide, it's important to note that the 5-year forecast only includes our district's general fund, and that's highlighted in green up there. The general fund is the fund that provides the daily operational costs of the district. So out of our district's total budget of $116 million, the 5-year forecast includes only the general fund, which is 82.7% of our total budget in this, our current year. Looking at the chart, you can see there's a long list of funds that supplement our educational programs that the forecast does not include. Also, I highlighted the ESSER fund up there. We've got a few funds remaining to spend out from the ESSER fund. That has certainly helped the cash balance in our 5-year forecast fund, but that money is coming to an end soon. Moving on to the next slide, I just want to remind that the forecast, I want to go over what the forecast is. It's simply a planning document, a planning tool. It's a snapshot of today's financials that have been adjusted to reflect all known activities of the future, along with certain assumptions and predictions of what may happen. In other words, it's a living document that becomes outdated once we get additional information or additional laws passed that change what we have to do come to light. And data does at points change fairly rapidly. As we prepare the forecast, we have to make assumptions about certain future revenues and expenditures. We base those assumptions on past trends and the knowledge that we have at this point in time. Making those assumptions can be challenging as we have limited or no control over factors or events that can determine what our future revenues and expenditures can be. So looking at the next slide, you can see that I've listed some of the challenges that we have with forecasting. The first two are uncontrollable challenges, and they are very material to the forecast as they alone comprise over 97% of our revenues. In addition, the last one listed there is uncontrollable. The pandemic has added many challenges to our forecast over the last 3 years, both good with the addition of additional revenues where we had another fund to fund people for our educational programs, but now the reduction of those monies are gone and it's challenging to move those back into the general fund. I'm not going to go over each one of those. You can see we do have challenges that impact each line of the forecast. Looking at the next slide, the next slide is a graph of the 5-year forecast. And as you can see, our revenues are represented by the blue bar. They grow at a slower pace in non-new levy years than our expenditures, which are represented by the red bar. Expenditures typically grow with inflation, but unfortunately, voted property taxes, which make up over 70% of our budget, do not grow with inflation. The teal line on this graph represents the impact that revenues and expenditures have on our cash balance. Looking at the chart, you can see the increase in our cash balance in fiscal years 24 and 25 reflect our 2023 recent levies first-time cash collections. In fiscal year 26, while expenditures see inflationary growth but revenues do not, the cash balance flattens out and begins to slowly decline. The next few slides, we're going to take a closer look at the data that goes into the 3 variables represented on this chart. First thing we're going to talk about is where does the money come from? So you can see that the 2 pie charts on this particular slide show the difference of where our revenues come from just a few short years ago in 2019 versus where they're coming from this year in 2024. In fiscal year 19, our residents funded 64% of our general fund budget. In our current year, that funding burden has grown to over 72.5%. 72.5% of our revenues will come directly from our residents, either in the form of taxes or TIF payments during this year. Tax payments, of course, flow directly to the district from the county. TIF revenues are resident or business taxes that are paid to the county. The county then pays the TIF payments to the township, and the township remits a portion of the TIF revenues to us as per each individual TIF compensation agreement that has been approved by the board. As you can see, less than 25% of our revenues will come from the state in fiscal year 24, as opposed to almost 32% in fiscal year 19. So the trend of moving the burden of paying for schools in districts such as ours continues to expand year after year. We take a look at our next slide. I just wanted to remind ourselves, we realize that our property taxes are paid mainly by homeowners. 88% of our property evaluation is in residential property. The remaining 12% is composed of business properties and public utilities. As far as property taxes, there is a misconception out there that as property values increase, the district receives more money. This is simply not true on voted levies. House Bill 920, which was passed in 1976, freezes tax revenue at the time the levy is passed on property in the district at that time. We get no inflationary increases as property valuation rises with inflations. Exceptions to House Bill 920 are inside millage, which is 5.33 of our total millage of 38.89, and new construction. Both of those in the past have grown significantly at a rate significantly less than inflation, and the typically less than 0.5% growth due to inside millage and new construction. That's significantly less than the inflation that we've been seeing and why we need to return to the voters. Moving on to the next slide, and this is one that you've seen before. The district tax rate in this current year has been reduced from 73 voted mills to 38.89 mills due to House Bill 920. Our residents have seen a reduction of over 34 mills of taxation due to House Bill 920. There obviously would have been less ballot issues, and we would have had to return to the voters far less often if we were able to receive just a little bit of inflationary increases. As you can see by this slide, in calendar year 2023, 13 of the 22 Hamilton County school districts have higher property tax rates than we do. In fact, our residential tax rate is currently below the Hamilton County average school district tax rate by 4.77 mils, or about 10%. However, we are extremely appreciative of our community's support at the polls last May. The county will be calculating the new tax rates in December, which will include our new levy, and I will keep you, the board, as well as our community, updated as to what our new residential tax rate will be and how that benchmarks against the other school districts in the county, their new rates as they're calculated in December as well. We do know that House Bill 920 will reduce the just passed levy. It little known throughout school districts. However, very seldom are property taxes put on the tax rolls at the rate that they're passed because of the increase in valuation from one year to the next. So very seldom does it end up being what the rate that was already passed. Moving on the next slide to talk about state funding a little bit. And as I said before, state funding provides just under 25% of our general fund revenue and is presented in the 5-year forecast on 3 different lines. So just under 19% of our total revenues comes from the state school funding program, and just under 6% of our total revenues come from the state share of local property taxes. So the next slide talks about exactly what are the state share of local property taxes. This line represents the reimbursement to school district for property tax reductions granted by the state to homeowners. The property tax reductions are for the senior homestead exemption, as well as the 10% and 2.5% homeowner rollback and residency exemptions. These percentages are reduced from the homeowner's tax bill on levies passed prior to 2016, but they are reimbursed to us by the state. So we do get that money, but instead of getting it from the taxpayers, we get it from the state. The state budget bill passed in 2016 eliminated these homeowner rollback and residency exemptions on future levies. So any new levies passed after 2015 cost our homeowners $35 per mil on a $100,000 homeowner instead of the $30.62 that a mil cost a residential homeowner prior to 2016. The reimbursement does remain in effect for our continuing levies, which were passed prior to 2016. So you will see a small increase in this line item and due to new construction. But again, that's going to be less than 0.1%. So not a lot, but a little bit. Certainly everything helps. Moving on from revenues to the next line item, where does the money go? So this is just a quick visual of how we spend our money, how we spend $1 of the district's money. 60 cents or 60% goes to personnel compensation, 34% goes to benefits, 9% goes to purchase services, such as utilities, instructional services, things such as that. 3% of our general fund budget goes to supplies, and 2% goes to capital outlay, debt service, and other expenditures account for 2%. Moving on to the next slide to look at, take a little bit deeper look at salaries and benefits. Again, which together represent about 84% of our total budget. I've listed there the staffing reductions that we've made since the levy was passed in 2019. You can see that we made reductions of $746,000 in fiscal year 21, $420,000 in fiscal year 23, and the reductions of $751,000 in this current fiscal year that we promised our community would be reductions and belt tightening that we would make regardless of if the levy passed, and those were in fact made. And these reductions are part of the 26 FTE reductions that we've had since 2018 that I know Mr. Fellows has presented in his past HR presentations at HR committee meetings. So 26 FTE reductions in the general fund since 2018. The other thing that has affected our salary and benefit line, the ESSER funds, continuity of services. 22 positions were removed from the general fund and funded by ESSER funding beginning in 2021. And as the ESSER funds begin to run out, these positions were returned to the general fund in February of fiscal year 23. So 5 months of fiscal year 23 had the 22 positions in it. This year in fiscal year 24, all 12 months will need to fund those positions that previously we had ESSER funds for. So as you can see from the 5-year forecast, projections are based upon COLA increases, step increases, and benefit adjustments contained in our negotiated agreement, along with insurance benefit, premium renewals, as well as the number of people who are paid from the general fund. All those things affect what happens in the percentage increases that we see in salary in our general fund. Moving on to the next slide, which covers the remaining line items in our expenditures: purchase services, materials and supplies, capital outlay, other sources, debt. I've listed for you some fixed costs there. Just to give you an idea, those fixed costs up on the screen represent 6.8% of our total budget. I'm not going to read them to you, but as you can see, these are large dollar items that are necessary to run the school district, and we don't have a lot of control over these. We have to have utilities, we have to have fuel for the buses, we have to meet state mandates for providing services for children. Once we spend money out of those line items for those fixed charges, only 9.3% of our budget remains for textbooks, materials and supplies, professional development, instructional purchase services, upkeep and maintenance of building, data process services, and other items which are important for running a very high-quality district. And finally, one of the most important things to say, I think, about our financing is Forest Hills strives to maintain a high-quality education at a low cost. And on this slide, we've listed just a few of the many ways that Forest Hills demonstrates that quality. Again, you can read them. Don't need to read them all, but from a finance standpoint, we certainly strive every year to receive the State Auditor Award of Distinction, and have certainly received it for numerous years in a row. We continue to spend less per pupil than the Hamilton County average, lower tax rate, and we're very proud of our performance. Both high schools in the top 4% of Ohio schools in U.S. News and World Reports. And also on the state report card, we were among the top 6% in performance in the state of Ohio. And again, that's just a few, as we saw at the beginning of the meeting, the PBIS recognition just tonight. So many reasons to be proud of our school district, both from a low cost and high quality thing. So I've done a lot of talking. I'm going to stop here for a second and see what questions you have on the 5-year forecast.
I had a quick question. So I compared it to last year's 5-year forecast. We don't have the ADM data anymore? Is
We
it
don't have, I'm
changed?
sorry?
The ADM data? It wasn't on the new 5-year?
I added that back in.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I had removed that because on that particular line item, we are a guarantee district, so the enrollment doesn't really come into play in terms of calculating that revenue. Mrs. Hosfeld asked me to put it back in, so it was updated today on board docs, and it is back in there.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have sent a
That's all
notice
right. I
letting
looked
you
at it
know.
over the weekend. Okay.
I should have sent a notice, sorry.
Did you factor in any lost revenue from the Ed Choice that just passed? Like, will we lose any income with students transferring out with Ed Choice? I thought that
We don't, the state changed that in the
so
fair
would we
full
be getting
funding.
less from the state or any, is that
The
gonna
state
affect
funds that directly, so that doesn't really affect us.
gonna affect our-
Yeah, and since that kind of goes along with the question Bob just had, our state revenues aren't really calculated based upon a per pupil amount. We get transitional aid guarantee, and we actually, once they run through their formula, we're about 3.8 million shy of what we got in fiscal year 20. So then they give us a guarantee that we will not receive less than we received in fiscal year 20.
So it doesn't-
That's a,
It doesn't affect like how many students are
no.
in the classroom either, so it doesn't matter if students leave?
Well, as far as student leaving for Ed Choice, if all students, say in a 30-room classroom, left, it certainly would, we wouldn't need that classroom, but typically that's not how it happens when enrollment declines. We have 9 schools and spread over, pre-K to even beyond 12. So we have spread over 14 grade levels, and unfortunately not all the declining enrollment happens in one area. So it is hard to look at reductions. But certainly that would be one thing, and that's something Rob looks at every year. I know if you guys remember when he puts up the chart that has blue, red, green, I believe, as to the classrooms in the elementary that are getting close. And I know that they do something similar looking at enrollment at the high school in terms of offering and how many classes of certain disciplines that they need to have.
I know that we lost, I believe, 94 students between October and November, and I know that as far as enrollment goes to private schools, like I know a lot of them are waitlisted, and so I just didn't know if we haven't seen what's actually going to happen with Ed Choice yet. We probably won't see that till next school year when enrollment opens, and so I just didn't know if we were planning or factoring into
And I
what
think
school might
that's
look like
something.
next year.
Yeah, and that's something that we, Human Resource takes care of every year. And I think too, if we go back to the slide on the salaries, we see that since 2018, we have reduced by 26 positions. Any other questions? All right, moving on to the very last agenda item, which is the October report. We begin with on agenda item 12.4 with donations. Over the past month, they have totaled just over $2,400. Item B is the Statement of Board Accounts, which presents all fund activity for our current fiscal year through October 31st, 2023. Item C presents the General Fund. Of course, the 5-year forecast fund that we just spoke about, receipts for the month and the fiscal year to date ended October 31st. As you can see on the report, we received our fall TIF payment totaling just under $6.8 million. So at this point in the year, revenues are tracking right as we would expect. Items D and E present the expenditures in the general fund for the month and fiscal year to date. Expenditures in the general fund, of course, are very stable and we spent evenly throughout the year. With 33% of our fiscal year complete, we have spent 32.2% of our appropriations, with another 9.5% committed for future expenditures. So appropriations are tracking as we would expect at this point in the fiscal year. Item F presents the activity in our main permanent improvement fund call center for the month of October and the fiscal year to date. Bank reconciliation and investments for October 31st are presented in agenda item 12.4G. And agenda item H requests board approval of an expenditure that did not issue a prior PO in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code section 5706.41D. That said, any questions on the October statements? If there are none, I respectfully request that the board approve the treasurer's items 12.1 through 12.4H as part of the consent agenda, which begins with item 8.1 through 12.4H. Thank you very much for your attention to a lengthy report tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 8.1 through 12.4.
Second.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
No.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Yes. Thank you, Alana. Next up, we have the committee reports. First one's Policy Committee. The following policies that we have on the agenda are being brought to the board for this second reading. The first reading appeared on the October 18th regular board agenda. This is the second reading and request for approval for the policies of the table below. Do I have a motion to approve the policy committee report?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausfeld?
Yes. All right, next up, we have the Technology and Facilities Committee meeting.
We met 2 weeks ago. We had a company called Four Seasons Environmental do some assessments on all of our facilities and buildings. Some of the things that stood out, some of our roofs may not need to be replaced. Some of them just may need patches, which could save us millions, potentially. And the one thing that stuck out to me is like Mr. Mishak said, that collaborating with the township. So looking at this, we have 1.2 million square feet of parking lots, asphalt. And I watched the video from last month's township meeting where they said they tried to partner with the school district, but that was the previous administration they tried to partner with. It wasn't us. But my question is, since the township's driving past our businesses, our schools anyway, can they not pull in and plow and start our lots and save us some money? Can we? Yeah. It doesn't matter, either one. I'm just curious.
John's addressed this before.
Snow removal?
Yeah.
The township's in a dire straits. They're trying to figure out how to get snow removal done this year too, because the state
Oh.
has actually changed Beachmont Avenue.
Okay.
The state is no longer going to be plowing Beachmont Avenue.
No.
So the township has to, and a couple other states. So Ms. Earhart and I were just meeting about this last week, actually.
Awesome.
Good news.
I know I've asked them,
John, you got a truck, right? I'll just get a snowplow on yours.
yeah, because I know when they said they tried to collaborate with us, it wasn't us.
Oh,
it was
no.
the previous administration. No, but that's all I had. That's
I mean, and we continue those conversations.
awesome. That's it.
We are absolutely open, and I meet
Oh, I
with
know.
them all the time.
Yeah.
So
I
whenever
just wanted
there's
to put it there.
opportunities to meet,
It wasn't us that they were trying to collaborate with. It was the previous administration, previous boards that,
Okay,
for whatever
but
reason,
I-
did something different. I
I've
don't know.
I've found that they're very willing, and where we can.
Right.
I mean, obviously, they've got some restrictions too, as
Sure.
we do. I think our newer SRO is a perfect example of a collaboration.
Yep.
The township, so we'll always keep those doors open.
Should we have a motion to approve the technology committee report?
That's just the information report.
Information.
We'll bring minutes
with that.
next
Okay.
time.
Very good. Okay, so we'll move on to, next up, we have board discussion. 14.1, we have the budget hearing organizational meeting, set dates for 2024. So that would be, the organizational meeting here is scheduled for January 4th, 2024 at 6:30 at Mercer Elementary. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the organizational meeting date of January 4th, 2024 at 6:30 PM at Mercer Elementary as presented.
Second.
How about Mrs. Jonas first, Mr. Bibb
That's fine.
second?
Ladies first.
Mrs. Jonas?
Or Leslie did it, and then I'm the second, right?
Oh, yeah, I made the motion.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't Bob, it was Dr. Rasmussen, sorry.
It's okay.
Mrs. Jonas?
I made the motion.
Leslie made the motion, and then.
Leslie first.
Leslie
and then I'll
first?
second. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Happens to us all.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Yes. Item 14.2, we have up legal settlement agreement. I will read off the statement here that we have. This item on the agenda involves a legal settlement between the Forest Hill School District and Performance Construction. You may be all aware that this litigation has been ongoing for multiple years and stems from the Anderson High School construction project that was part of the 2014 bond issue. The full resolution we are voting on this evening includes in tonight's agenda. But as a matter of transparency to the community, I would like to provide a brief overview prior to the vote amongst the board members. As part of the settlement, Forest Hill School District would agree to a $2.1 million payment over 9 years to Performance Construction. The district's liability insurance would cover $250,000 of those payments, bringing the district's total amount to $1.85 million. This agreement would bring to a close a very lengthy legal process on terms I believe are very favorable to the school district. It would also provide resolution, peace, and certainty to the district and the community members while eliminating further costs related to any litigation. It is recommended that we approve the resolution as shown in the attachment for legal settlement agreement. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as shown in the attachment for a legal settlement agreement.
Second.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hosfeld?
Yes. Next up, we have item 14.3. We have the board discussion. Any board members would like to take lead?
I'll make just a couple of quick comments about the agreement that we just voted on. I'm the longest serving board member on this board right now, and this predates me. And so this was a very long process that, again, none of us necessarily had anything to do with, but I just wanted to reiterate for the community that, you know, there's some tension on the board sometimes, yes. But this is really a fair agreement, and I think that it is what our district needs, at least to take a fresh step forward. And I'm happy to see that it has been made and reached, and this can be put to bed, and that the new board coming in January will not have to deal with this particular item. And I just want to thank everybody sitting up here for their time and efforts and everything to get that resolved. So thanks.
And I just want to make a reminder that, what is it, next Thursday's Parent Academy? Larry's going to give a presentation on the R factor, the E plus R plus O. So if you have a chance to go out and see it, I'd advise that. So that's all.
So I'll just make a couple comments. I was very happy to see all the awards for the PBIS awards. I guess all the schools got them. I'm happy to see that we're doing very well there, but I still believe bullying is a huge issue in this district. I've had parents stop me at Kroger, parents stop me at the roller rink, bowling, all over the place talking about bullying, and I've had them send me pictures of their kids, you know, with their shirt torn and just, I don't know, like bleeding, bruising, all that kind of stuff. And I just feel like these are ongoing issues with the same kids over and over again. And I just feel like if you have a child that is constantly causing disturbances, the teachers and administration need to be keeping a closer eye on that student so that they are not out of sight, out of camera view or whatever, to make sure that all the students in these classrooms are safe. And so that is something that I would really appreciate seeing going forward.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
just wanted to, for everybody who ran for school board, I appreciate all of your hard work. It takes a lot of time and energy, time away from family. And I want to congratulate Jason and Wendy. And we'll see you up here in 2 months.
All right. Same sentiment from me. I congratulate the two new board members sitting here, board members-elect, and those Kevin and Ken who ran very fair and honest campaigns. So appreciate all the efforts everybody has put forward. And with that, we'll have the adjournment. The next scheduled board meeting is on December 13th, 6:30, right here. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Dr. Rasmussen?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.